Hi, I'm Rabbi Baruch Levy, also known as Rabbi B. Welcome to Soul Centered. Soul Centered is a center for loss, meaning, and healing. We're based in Denver, Colorado, but we work with folks around the world. I'm a co-founder along with my wife, Ariella, and we co-founded it around loss, meaning, and healing. Ariella and I counsel and coach people in those areas around all kinds of loss, finding meaning, spirituality, and she's specifically in healing, physical, emotional, and spiritual, and we'd love to work with you. This is a soul-centered experience. So in addition to counseling, we also offer different types of experiences. I'm calling this Transforming Tragedy. It was inspired by my friends in Omaha, Nebraska, Jewish Family Service, and Executive Director Karen Gustafson asked if I wanted to do something to connect with the community there, the Jewish and the greater community. This is for anybody and everybody. It's now a video series. The first part was The American Way, and this one is really the secret ingredient to Jewish survival, and I'm calling it Passover, Memory, and Redemption. So Mark Twain in 1899 visited what was then called Palestine, and he was blown away by what he found. He found a people, even in 1899, who were transforming the land, who were not only surviving but thriving. And he really thought about it and looked around, and he said, the Jews are 1%, and we're not. We're like 0.01% of the world population. And yet we've disproportionately not only impacted the world, but we've survived. All these other great powerhouses, Egyptians and Babylonians and the Romans and the Nazis and the Soviets have all come. They've all tried to kill us. They're all gone. And the Jew is still here. And he says, what is the secret of Jewish immortality? And I think there are lots of secrets, and this is applicable for anybody and everybody, especially now during the time of coronavirus. You don't have to be Jewish to understand these secret ingredients and extract from them best practice. I would say one of the key ingredients to Jewish survival comes down to memory, specifically the act of remembering. If you look at the Bible, if you study the Torah, it's oftentimes, thought to be this kind of explicitly religious document, and in some ways it is, observe the Sabbath and the laws of the dietary laws called kashrut. But then you look at the number one commandment in the Torah, and it's not something that would strike you as explicitly religious. And yet it's a religious act. It's a divine act. What is the number one commandment in the Bible? It is to remember. Remember the stranger, the widow, the orphan. Remember you were strangers in a strange land. Remember the Sabbath. Remember your enemies, Amalek. Remember this day, it says in Exodus 13, verse 3. Remember this day, and it was referring to Passover, the holiday where you went out of the land of Egypt. And we're just coming out of the Passover holiday this year. And that's what it's all about. The Passover holiday, the ritual, the Seder that we gather around the table and have the meal. We tell the story out of the Haggadah, our ritual book. But it's all there to remember, to help us remember. What are we remembering? We're remembering the story of our ancestors. We're remembering the suffering and the persecution and the journey and the liberation. But here's the secret sauce and the defining difference. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks says it's not about history. Right? In Judaism, we don't even have history. We don't believe in history. We believe, as he says, in memory. What's the difference between history and memory? History, his story, something that happened to him, to her, to them, to other. Memory is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It may have happened thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago or years ago, but it happened to me. Even if I wasn't there, this is my people. This is my story. These messages are mine. And so on Passover, we gather together not to talk about Jewish history, but to share our stories of our ancestors and our stories of our elders, our stories of what it means to go from liberation to redemption, to freedom. Why do we do that? Because in that act, no matter what we're going through, right? Last video's conversation, in times like these, there have always been times like these, we remember that yes, there have been times like these before, and our ancestors, our forebears, not only survived, they thrived. We talk about constantly in Judaism, memory and remembering Jacob and the wrestling match between him and the angel where he became Israel, our namesake. We are the children, not of Jacob, of Israel, because he wrestled through the night and he wrestled with God and with man, and he wasn't afraid. He didn't let go. He held on. And we are the children of Israel. We remember Joseph, who goes down into the dungeons of Egypt, right? But never loses himself, his identity, his way, and comes out and ultimately rises in power. Remember Moses overcoming all kinds of fears and anxiety in being a leader, but he rises up. We remember rising up in the ghettos of Warsaw, right, where our ancestors, not our ancestors, our great-grandparents fought back against the Nazis and the partisans, and those Jews who went to the ovens, but saying the prayers of Shema with faith on their lips and love in their hearts. We remember the Chalutzim, the pioneers who went from the Holocaust to Israel, only to endure more terrorism, more terror, more fighting, and drain the swamps and made the desert bloom, right? And we remember men and women like my great-grandfather, Baruch Paragal, who came to this country, America, not knowing the language, not having any money, not having any family, having a name people couldn't say. Trust me, Baruch is not easy. He changed it. He became Ben Perlman and settled in Omaha, Nebraska, and he sacrificed and he persevered, and all of his children and his grandchildren went to college and succeeded and all of that, and myself, because of that man and men and women like him who survived and who thrived and who persevered. And so we tell these stories on Passover, and we tell these stories whenever we can, and we study our ancient books, and we have these conversations to remember, not only have there been times like these, but there have been great men and women who have survived and who have persevered. And that's what we need today during the coronavirus. And if not now, then there will be another virus or another trauma or tragedy. If not collectively, then personally. We need heroes. We need examples of men and women who have survived, who have thrived, who have persevered. Now more than ever before, as Jews, we need to draw upon this. As Christians, to turn to these ancient tales. As Americans, to remember who came before us and built this country. Right? We are the children of desert survivors and Holocaust fighters and pioneers that made the desert bloom in Israel. We are men and women. We are a generation that is built on the shoulders of giants. It's easy to look down on a giant when you're standing on her shoulder. Now, more than ever before, we need to remember where we have come from. That is how we will get through these times, to remember who we are and where we've come from, and that their story and her story and his story is not history. It's our story. And that our story will be told in the next generation and generations to come. What story they will tell, that is up to us. Watch the previous video. But I believe that each and every one of us has the power to create an inspiring outcome. And this, my friends, memory, the act of remembering, is the secret, a secret, to Jewish immortality. As the Baal Shem Tov, the great mystic, says, forgetfulness leads to exile. Memory is the source of redemption. May each and every one of us remember where we've come from, remember who we are, and remember why we are here and what we must do. And that, my friends, will lead to liberation and freedom, and redemption will come. Take care. God bless.